If the last two episodes were any indication, you might have noticed that I'm having difficulty keeping to the 15-minute limit. While I'm not one for hard limits, I should think that most people who will listen to this podcast wouldn't want to spend more time listening to me ramble. After all, it's not a light-hearted topic, it's not meant to be funny, and there's only so much of me you might be able to take. I also received feedback from a listener that he'd rather have more actionable points in this podcast. What do the rest of you think? Write to me at melvin@accesscontent.digital or drop a comment on melvincito.com/better. I can only improve on this podcast if I get feedback from you, and you'll know if you've played a part in making this better. If you knew me personally, you'll know I'm not a very feelings-based person. In fact, if I were to be specific, I think I only managed to unlock my emotions in my 30s. I'd say a huge part of that happening is due to 3 milestone events in my life. The first one was when I found religion. Second one was when I got into a serious relationship with my current wife. And the last one was when I married her. These 3 events caused me to disregard common logic and operate more on feelings and faith. Even though I know such behaviour may seem illogical and even stupid, I think it has brought me immense joy throughout the years. The reason why relationships are probably the world's biggest mystery is that many problems or even triumphs are centered around emotions. Relationships are built on emotions, run by emotions, and even ruined by emotions. We all know we can never understand the full picture behind human emotions because we will never have full and complete data over them, not even our own. So in this episode, I'm going to go 100 or maybe just 75% emotions and share with you what I've learned recently. The 4 horsemen of relationship apocalypse, how they exist in my relationship with my wife, and how I intend to stop them in their tracks. Here at Better, we search the internet for content that will help you not be good but become better. I'm your man Melvin here, and this is Better Relationships, where I aim to help people with tips to create better bonds and deeper relationships. If you like what you're listening to, be sure to drop a like, and if you're new here, consider subscribing on Stitcher, Spotify, or anywhere you're listening to this podcast on. From this episode onwards, I'm also going to be uploading to YouTube, so feel free to click on the show notes and get the link to my channel, not only to subscribe, but turn on those notifications so you'll always be the first to know when we have something new to make you better. The original inspiration behind this episode first appeared on the Gottman Institute blog and was written by Eli Lasitsa. For those of you who don't know the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, they are figures in the Bible representing conquest, war, famine, and death. These states also serve as appropriate metaphors describing communication styles that can predict divorce with more than 90% accuracy. Because of time constraints, I'm only going to talk about the first 2 in this multi-part episode. The first one is criticism. Let's face it, relationships are never made up of just happy days and good times. We all have that long list of complaints or feedback for our partners. When we are in a negative state of mind, we seek an explanation for our negative feelings and tend to scan our environments for others' shortcomings to account for our own annoyances or disappointments. I'm guilty of this too. I know I tend to keep track of my wife's mistakes, but I try not to say anything to avoid conflict. In fact, many times, these frustrations get bottled up until it turns into resentment. Every now and then, it turns into a statement of blame that goes something like, "You're always making me clean up after you." Maybe you already feel triggered after hearing something like that. The difference between that and voicing a complaint is in what we're pointing at. Complaints center on specific issues, but criticism is an attack on a character. I really feel guilty talking about this, and I've learned that I have been criticizing my wife as a whole person. Words such as always or never imply that the other person has a consistent negative personality flaw. Now, of course, I have been on the receiving end of such words as well, and it always makes me feel assaulted, rejected, or even hurt. What I've learned is such actions often cause the couple to escalate. Criticism will reappear with escalation with greater frequency and intensity. And it's true. I've been with my wife for almost 10 years before we got married. And in the last 2 years, we have been projecting our insecurities and negative emotions as criticisms a lot more often. After all, staying together presents many more opportunities to whip out the blame thrower more often. Can we change our approach to this? Absolutely. If you're unhappy with something in your relationship, it's okay to express it. However, instead of attacking with criticism, from now on, I'll practice using a gentle startup. Instead of saying, "You never clean up after yourself," I'll try to complain without blame. I'll practice talking about my feelings using I statements and express a positive need. I'll turn this around and say, "I feel that a sink of dirty plates is not a very nice thing to have in a home." The first time I read about this, I thought, this sounded very self-centered, but yet very robot-like. However, as I dived deeper, I realized this is about communicating your emotions as well as what we need from our partners without blaming them directly. Criticism is the first horseman, and fighting off this urge to criticize as your first reaction may be difficult, but surely worth it. Allowing criticism to come into your life will keep the doors open for the rest of the horsemen too. Behind every complaint, there's a longing to work towards solutions and mutual fulfillment. For that to happen, both parties would have to make an effort to let go of grudges and bitterness. We need to give our partners the opportunity to try to fix things instead of attacking with you statements and leading our partners to become defensive. Let's allow them to do something that may make a positive difference. Once that happens, it will help us connect with our partners through open and honest communication. While it's important to communicate openly and honestly, making our intentions clear in a respectful way makes the difference. Instead of needlessly hurting each other's feelings, we can express them while making us vulnerable. This vulnerability opens an opportunity for intimacy and connection, leading to a relationship where we'll have a strong foundation of trust, respect, and loving support. This way, the two of you can become a team, able to soothe and comfort one another. I hope you've learned something about criticism so far. Let me know in the comments if you're going to do something about it as well. After the break, we'll talk about contempt. The next horseman is contempt. This is regarded as the worst of the 4 horsemen because it's the most destructive negative behavior in relationships. It's also the number 1 predictor of divorce. Malcolm Gladwell quotes, "If Gottman observes one or both partners in a marriage showing contempt towards the other, he considers it the most important sign that a marriage is in trouble." Communicating with contempt requires one to be truly mean, at least at that point in time. Some examples are mocking with sarcasm and condescension, hostile humor, name-calling, eye-rolling, and sneering. Just imagine your significant other doing any one of those and tell me how you feel. Contempt is poisonous because it conveys disgust and superiority. It simply means, I'm better than you, you are lesser than me. It's fueled by slow-cooked, long-simmering negative thoughts, and it manifests itself as an attack on a loved one. What would you expect to happen after you are on the receiving end of such abrasive behavior? Of course you fight back. It will inevitably lead to more destructive conflict, more so than reconciliation. It's certainly almost impossible to resolve any problems when there are messages of disgust, condescension, or even condemnation. It's painful, to be honest, to remind myself of such instances where either my wife or I have been behaving contemptuously. I was thinking back to an argument where she broke a bowl and I mocked her for always saying I'm callous. Did I care how she felt then? At least at that moment, I admit I cared more for my ego than her feelings. or how her words cut into me when she would behave in an overly formal or managerial manner. I don't even recall the exact argument anymore, so I guess I must be really blessed to have a bad memory when it comes to negative emotions. Still, I can say from personal experience, contempt is the most poisonous of all relationship killers. It's even been found by the Gottman Institute that couples who are contemptuous of each other are more likely to suffer from infectious illnesses. It's damaging psychologically, emotionally, and even physically. Fortunately, there are two effective antidotes to contempt. In the short term, describe your feelings and needs. In the long term, we need to build a culture of fondness and admiration. Start small and describe your own feelings and needs about any issue. It's almost the same as dealing with criticism. Use I statements and avoid blame. I know what I would do for that already. The long-term solution is what I'm more interested in doing for my own marriage. And that is thinking about the greater context of our relationship. From this point on, I'll aim to do small positive things for my wife, to create a system of fondness and admiration for her. I'll try to cultivate a positive view of our past by talking about the happy events that we have gone through together and aim to reconnect with her more frequently. The aim is to help each of us remember the good times and also the tough times where we pushed through together. In glorifying the struggle, we'll be able to build solidarity in our relationships. My action plan may apply to everyone who's listening as well. We can all do with more daily gestures and expressions of appreciation, kindness, support, and love. Maybe it's a long kiss, just like when you just got married. Maybe it's taking time to have a chat with your partner to understand what stress he or she is going through, or even spending time thanking each other just before you go to bed. Even though fondness and admiration is crucial in a relationship, we might have been more conscious of it when we were in our honeymoon phases. These feelings may have dwindled over time through conflict, resentment, or simply forgetting how they feel like because of the countless distractions in life. Positive thoughts invoke positive feelings, and the goal is to turn both into positive actions to help heal and bring companionship back into your relationships. The more positivity you have in your relationship, the more you will create positive sentiment override, which is what successful couples rely on to stay connected. In view of how long this episode will get if I carry on even further with the other two horsemen, I'm going to stop here. If you enjoyed this episode and would like to listen on, feel free to do so in the next episode. Just in case I don't make it in time to release it as a double episode, be sure to subscribe and watch out for it while it's still being edited. This is an important topic, and I really want to give it all the respect it deserves, so I don't really want to reduce the amount of content, but still keep this episode within a reasonable length of time. Besides, even just by understanding the first two horsemen, we'll have enough material to work with and to take steps towards improving our relationships. What do you think of these tips and my own action plan? If you have a tip that's very applicable to you or you think might help other people, or even a suggestion for me, feel free to drop it in the comments on my website at melvincito.com/better. Also, be sure to subscribe to this podcast on Stitcher, Spotify, or anywhere you're listening to this on, so that you'll always be the first to know when I upload the next episode. Let me know in the comments which point made the biggest change in your mindset or which one you want to work on right away. I'm always looking for new inspiration, so do let me know what other kinds of good advice you've heard as well. I will try to read every single comment, so your opinion really matters to me, even if it's bad. Once again, I'm Melvin, and stop being good, just keep getting better.